No one likes to be a victim of fraud. And this is especially true when it comes to charity fraud. We give our hard-earned money to an organization that we believe is trying to deal with a problem in our society, and we suddenly find out that that money went to line the pockets of some individual who could care less about that cause. But fortunately, there are law enforcement organizations out there trying to protect us. And today, we're going to talk to some of them as they deal with the specific topic of veterans charity fraud. Barry, tell us about how your office is involved in moving cases forward involving charity fraud. What role do you play?
Illinois Attorney General's most fundamental duties include protecting charity and protecting the people against fraud. And in terms of addressing charity fraud in Illinois, there are two statutes that assist the Attorney General's office in performing these duties: the Charitable Trust Act and the Solicitation for Charity Act. Now, these laws help the Attorney General in two ways. One, it creates a resource for potential donors to obtain financial information about charities and their professional fundraisers because it imposes a registration and an annual reporting requirement. The second thing that these statutes do is that it allows the Attorney General to investigate potential troublemakers in the world of charitable giving and to take legal action to correct or prevent misuse or abuse of charitable assets.
So let's talk a bit about veterans charity fraud in particular, because your organization was recently involved in an action against a veterans charity. Maybe you can tell us about that and how it might have fit into a broader effort to bring some of these fraudulent charitable groups to justice.
Illinois Attorney General's office was involved in a litigation against a charity called Vietnam National Headquarters. And it was part of a larger law enforcement effort, both in Illinois and nationally. First, in Illinois itself, we had been taking action against Vietnam's paid professional fundraisers in order to build a case to bring against Vietnam itself. In May of 2017, just a few months before our lawsuit against Vietnam, consent decree and final judgment was entered in a case called Madigan versus Safety Publications. And on a national level, Illinois coordinated with 24 other states, including chiefly Michigan, California, and Ohio, to take collective action to shut down the charity. And that was in November of 2017.
So in the case of Vietnam, how were donors contacted, and what was the specific claim that people were making against them that led you to take action?
We alleged that Vietnam and its professional fundraisers solicited the public by phone and by mail, making various misrepresentations about how Vietnam's money was spent. And we alleged how Vietnam and its solicitors would represent that Vietnam provided medical facilities and treatment to local veterans suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder and Agent Orange, but how Vietnam did not provide these programs. In the complaint dealing with Vietnam that we filed in Madigan versus Safety Publications, we alleged that Vietnam's donors didn't even know who was actually soliciting them because callers failed to disclose that they were paid and instead represented to donors that they were official representatives of the charity, calling them from Vietnam's regional business office in Elk Grove Village, Illinois, which was actually the for-profit business address of the fundraiser.
How much money was given to these organizations before they were shut down?
In our complaint in Madigan versus Vietnam National Headquarters, we alleged that in 2015 and 2016 alone, Vietnam reported raising $3.1 million from donors.
Do we have any idea what the money was actually used for?
We allege that of the $3.1 million that Vietnam raised in 2015 to 2016, $2.7 million went to the fundraisers and only $479,000 went to Vietnam, much of which was spent on administration and overhead.
So how was this organization, which was, quote, a legitimate, 501c3, able to get away with all this?
Well, Ultimately, Vietnam wasn't able to get away with its activities because the multi-state shut it down once there was a sufficient basis to do so. During our multi-state action against Vietnam, General Madigan filed a lawsuit in Illinois State Court seeking the complete shutdown of Vietnam. That lawsuit could not have been filed unless the Illinois Attorney General's office could prove that Vietnam committed the misrepresentations alleged in the complaint. Don't get me wrong, the fact that we had 24 states cooperating in this coordinated endeavor helped lead to an extremely fast resolution. An agreed order shutting down Vietnam and removing Vietnam's 14-member board was entered the same day that we filed suit.
Do we have any idea what the money was actually used for aside from the chunk that went to the telemarketers?
They did have a small amount of money going to program service. And when I say small amount, I mean a very small amount of money going for program services. They would make sandwiches, which they would pay, which they would feed to homeless veterans.
So what happened to the individuals involved in running these organizations and founding them?
Attorney General Madigan filed a lawsuit in Illinois State Court on November 6, 2017, and an agreed order was entered the same day enjoining all 14 board members and the controlling officers. And there were parallel settlements entered between the defendants and 24 other participating states that had parallel terms to the injunctions contained in Illinois' agreed order.
Was any of the money recovered?
General Madigan's goal from the beginning was always to dissolve the charity and appoint a liquidating receiver to marshal and distribute the remaining assets to charity. Under Illinois law, that requires a court order. And when we filed the lawsuit on November 6, 2017, an agreed order was entered and a receiver was appointed to take control of Vietnam and liquidate its assets. That process has been ongoing since we filed suit, although it's finally nearing completion. And once that's done, all monies recovered by the receiver in our litigation will be distributed equally to Fisher House Foundation and Operation Homefront, two national veterans charities.
What do you think it is that drives people to give money to veterans charities in particular? I guess we could all surmise, but have you noticed a common theme among people who donate to these organizations?
There is a common theme, and that's playing on people's patriotism and their desire to support veterans and soldiers. Who doesn't want to help a veteran? Who doesn't want to help those who put their lives on the line to protect this country? Who doesn't want to help those who are injured doing it?
So if I'm a donor and I have a feeling that something is fishy about an appeal, or maybe I feel like I'm giving money to something that is not above board, what would you advise me to do?
I would tell any donor who feels that way that they can help combat charity fraud by reporting suspicious solicitations. Report it to a state charity official. Report it to the Better Business Bureau. They will know what to do with that information.
In terms of Illinois, where should people go on the web to find out how to give that information to you?
Consumers can go to www.illinoisattorneygeneral.gov, and they will find how to contact our office and submit information to our office. That's also where they can go to visit our office to find information about charities. We have a charitable database that we maintain on our website as well.
And are there tips for how people can better understand what they're giving to?
Yes. First of all, we post tips on our website about how to give as a informed donor. And in general, if you always ask how much of your donation will go to charity, or other detailed questions, including whether the organization's registered with their state charity regulator.
I'd like to thank our guests today and all of the charity officials around the country who work hard every day to protect us from charity fraud.